to be here and speak to all of you about the Portuguese Golden Visa program. So basically, the investor must wire the funds from abroad. It has to be an international transfer of funds. The investor must enter Portugal with a valid Schengen visa.
After obtaining all of the necessary documents and with the concluded investment.
Hello, everyone. First of all, let us thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's an enormous pleasure to be here and speak to all of you about the Portuguese Golden Visa program, which in fact has had an enormous success so far, fortunately. So just to commence and give you an idea of Portugal, I may imagine that some of you already know the country. You may not know everything about the country, but well, it is a very nice, a very welcoming country, very well located in Europe, and has been elected by the World Travel Awards as one of the best destinations in the world. So the main benefits and the key benefits about the Golden Visa program is that it is, first of all, a temporary residence permit that can only be granted to citizens of third countries, provided that they execute an investment activity in Portugal. The benefits of the Golden Visa are to enter in Portugal without any specific visa and travel within the Schengen space. Investors are free to work and to live and work in Portugal, and they can benefit from the Portuguese Social Security services, from the Portuguese public health system, as well as the Portuguese public education system. Investors may add their family members, their direct family members to their Golden Visa application, like spouses, the children, parents, and in-laws. And after the 5 years of residency of the Golden Visa, the investors can either choose to continue to renew the Golden Visa for periods of 2 years, they can apply for Portuguese citizenship, or they can apply for a permanent residence permit. The requirements the requirements for the Golden Visa are not complicated. The process was structured to be non-red tape and extremely simple. So basically, the investor must wire the funds from abroad. It has to be an international transfer of funds. The investor must enter Portugal with a valid Schengen visa, no references with the Schengen system or the Portuguese immigration authorities, no crimes committed that are punishable in Portugal with more than a year imprisonment, and the permanence requirements in Portugal are just of 7 days in the first year and 14 days in the following periods of 2 years. So the key issue of the program, the main key focus is simple, keep it simple, have a simple procedure. Then what are the investment options? The most well-known investment options are the ones related to real estate and investment funds. These are, in fact, without a doubt, the vast majority of the options. Nevertheless, there are others that are becoming increasingly well-known and increasingly popular. So, one, just to go through all of them, one, the capital transfer of €1 million. The investor just can merely transfer €1 million to Portugal, to a Portuguese bank account, and that's it. Or they can create 10 jobs in Portugal. They can do this personally or through a sole shareholder company. And if made in a low populated area, all investments that I am going to talk about are reduced in 20%, which is in fact quite significant. For the acquisition of real estate, we have two options. Either the investor acquires a property for a purchase price of €500,000, straightforward acquisition. There are no specific requirements. It can be a plot of land, it can be a warehouse, an office, a whole building, just an apartment, a villa, whatever the investor chooses, or the investor can choose to acquire a property that is built more than 30 years ago or located in an urban rehabilitation area and make works and refurbish that property. This option has become increasingly relevant in the real estate market in Portugal these days. So it has had a lot of demand. So, but nevertheless, here it's a bit more, there are some things that investors must bear in mind because they actually have to make refurbishment works in the house. Sometimes people ask us whether just painting the walls would be sufficient, and it's not. So there has to be a material refurbishment of the house. Either case, again, the investment can be reduced in 20%. Then the investment funds, the venture capital funds, it's an investment of 350,000 euros. It has had a lot of demand these days. Again, it's an investment option that's becoming increasingly popular. And there are others who are essentially donations, such as a donation to a university or a foundation that aims for scientific researches, or a donation to a museum or to any entity that supports artistic production. These investment options, because they are donations and there is no return associated with them, are of course less popular. But I can say that here in our firm we have already had some investors for both these options. And then there is another final option, which is the creation of jobs through the incorporation of a company in Portugal. This makes sense for investors who are actually planning to move to Portugal and to have a business here and take advantage of the location and economics of Portugal. Nevertheless, there, as probably some of you may know, as of January 1st, 2022, some changes are expected to take place in the Portuguese Golden Visa program. Essentially, these. So there will be an increase of the investment threshold for the cases where, for the options of deposit of €1 million in a bank account. There will be an increase of the investment threshold for the investment, for the donation to sciences like the university or a foundation. There will be an increase from 2,050 to 500,000, and in the investment funds, which was the other very popular option, there will be an increase of the investment threshold from 350,000 euros to 500,000 euros. Finally, the job creation with the incorporation of a company will also suffer some changes. The investment threshold will be increased to 500,000 euros. Then, as for real estate, which is the most popular one, the changes are a bit more significant and they have been quite debated. And so what happens is that as of January 1st, 2022, if a property is licensed for residential purposes, like an apartment or a house, then the investment will only be eligible for Golden Visa purposes if the property is located in the islands of Azores and Madeira, which are beautiful, so still a great investment, or if the house is located in an interior area of the country, like the areas that are less populated and that are in the interior of the country. Nevertheless, if the investor still wants to invest in non-residential properties, such as properties for touristic purposes, or an office, or a store, or a plot of land, anything that is not residential, the investment can still be executed anywhere in the country. These restrictions will apply to both investment options related to real estate, both the straightforward acquisition or the acquisition with refurbishment works. Then, as the first step about the investment is the execution of the investment itself. This is a very summarized step plan on what an investor needs to know when deciding to invest in Portugal. First is the Portuguese taxpayer number, which is one of the most relevant numbers any Portuguese citizen or investor in Portugal must have. And considering that the investor will likely be a non-resident for tax purposes in the European Union, the investor will have to appoint a tax representative. Then it is essential to open a bank account in a Portuguese bank, because as you may recall, one of the requirements for the Golden Visa is to have an international transfer of funds being made. So the investment funds must be wired from wherever the client has an account to the Portuguese bank account. Then it is essential to have an attorney, someone to represent throughout the process. Notably now, with all the COVID restrictions and the traveling restrictions, it is very important, it's paramount to have someone in Portugal that can represent the investor throughout the process. And then once all these can work more or less simultaneously, but after having all of this, then the investor chooses a property or an investment fund or whatever investment option that the investor is considering. Of course, properties and investment funds are the most popular, but again, there are all other options that are increasingly well known. Then it's a matter of negotiating the terms of the investment. For example, if a property is to be acquired, the client will have to negotiate either just a promissory contract. For example, if the property is under construction, and the investor may submit the Golden Visa application with a promissory contract, provided that the investment threshold was already paid, or they can buy the property right away and submit the Golden Visa with a transfer deed. In case of acquisition of properties with refurbishment works, it will be necessary to also negotiate the terms of the construction works contract, because this document will also be submitted to the Portuguese Immigration Office. So, provided that the investment itself, regardless of being a promissory contract or a transfer deed, is executed, that's when the investor can submit his Golden Visa application. And now it will be Marta proceeding with the aspects of immigration and practical matters.
So, as Maria had an opportunity to present to you, there are many different types and options of the eligible investment for Golden Visa program in Portugal. As the first step for the Golden Visa application is the execution and conclusion of the investment, and this is the basis because it is necessary to prove the investment to the immigration office. After this conclusion and during the conclusion of the investment, it is necessary to obtain the personal documents of the investor and, if applicable, for the respective family members. At this point, it will depend on who's the family members to know what's the documentation necessary to obtain. But for example, if the investor is married and have 2 children, it probably will necessary to obtain criminal records, marriage certificate, birth certificate, and other documentation. After the obtaining all of the necessary documents and with the concluded investment, it will be made the electronic submission of the application. The first one will be the investor's application, and only after this submission, it is possible to submit the family members. After all of the investor and family members applications are submitted, the immigration office will notify that this application was accepted. Normally, the first one accepted is always the investor, and after the family members. So the next step will be scheduling the appointment at CEF to submit all of the documents in person and also to collect the biometrics data. Duly made that, the Golden Visa is granted, and the investor and family members will need to pay for the issuance of the residence cards. And after that, the only thing that's happened that cards are issued. After that, card is the first one is valid for 1 year, after what it needs to be renewed. And the second card will be valid for 2 years. So this is a really simple plan. I think the Portuguese government actually simplified a lot this process. After this, what I will tell you is how our office and our team can assist you on this process. Regarding our assistance with the investment, we will always assist you from the beginning and during all ongoing matter concerning the Golden Visa program. If the investor chooses to invest in property acquisition, so our team will execute all of the due diligence to make sure that this investment is what the investor really wants, and it is suitable for him, and if it's legally eligible for the Golden Visa program. If the investor choose this kind of investment, we will, after all of the analysis and documentation, we will negotiate and draft the promissory purchase and sale agreement, execute the deed of purchase and sale, and proceed with all of the necessary registrations in the land registry office and tax authorities. So in case the property acquisition with the refurbishment works, what we added is the revision and negotiation of the construction works contract and the needed registration with the Portuguese authorities. If the investment is in participation units in venture capital funds, we will also do the due diligence to make sure this is the right investment for the person. We will proceed with subscription of the participations, registrations, all of the process from the beginning until the conclusion of the investment. As for our assistance in the application for the residence permit, we will start all over beginning. We will prepare all of the necessary documentation, powers of attorney. We will inform the person of what documents needs to be obtained. We will analyze all of the documents to be sure that they are legally valid for the immigration office. Proceed with the upload of the electronic application of the investor and family members. Also, we will schedule all of the appointments at the immigration office. We will attend with the family to the immigration office, and from the beginning till the end, we will always assist the family in everything that is needed. After the appointment, when the cards are issued, the family has to renew the card 1 year after, and then 2 and 2 years. There are some requirements for that. In first year, the family will need to stay in Portugal for 7 days, and in the next renewals, they will need to prove the stay of 14 days, which is really easy to prove because Portugal is a really beautiful country to spend some holidays. I wanted to say that after 5 years of legal residence in Portugal, investor and family can apply for a citizenship or for a permanent residence card. What is the main requirement is the knowledge of basic Portuguese language. From my experience, as I'm Ukrainian and my family is Ukrainian, I can say that learning Portuguese is really easy. The people here always try to help with this, and I learned to speak Portuguese by playing cards and watching movies in Portuguese. So it's all possible, and the process is really easy, and you don't need to interview. You just submit the documents and wait, and 99% are accepted. So, well, this is what I had to say. I will ask Maria to proceed with the presentation. Thank you.
Ladies, I understand there was another slide. I thought you said you will proceed. Okay, thank you very much. I want to go to Portugal. I've been to Spain right next to you, but didn't get there quite yet. Fabulous, legendary, historical country. I have a question here. If you could please, since we're on the subject of Portugal, can you please clarify regarding work? So if I apply for the documentation and the status, I suppose I cannot work in Portugal?
No, actually you can work in Portugal. You can.
I can. I am able to work in Portugal.
Yes, you can. You are
very interesting.
To work and live. Yes.
Very interesting.
And we have, in fact, several investors that applied for their Golden Visa, and then they actually moved to Portugal and they structure their businesses here in Portugal. I can give you an example. We have an architect that came to Portugal and is now having all the documents made so that he can be an architect here in Portugal too. So, and he's a holder of a Golden Visa. We have clients that bring their businesses from other countries, from out of Europe to Portugal, and in order to set up the structure to work in Europe, and they set up their structure here in Portugal so they can have their businesses here in Europe. So it's very, very common. Okay,
excellent. So in Europe, yes, but in Portugal, you said an architect. So I suppose he has local clients. Even going as far as simply becoming employed in a bank. Okay, so this differentiates your program, which brings us to the next question. Portugal is very popular. Okay, so I think that's well known. Can I ask you, Marta, top 3 reasons why that is the case? Why is Portugal so popular?
Well, one of the things is that, in fact, the country is beautiful. And in fact,
but Greece can say that. Greece can say that too.
That too. Yeah, that's correct. But the program itself, it's a non-red tape. The requirements are quite simple. So it's not a bureaucratic process. And in fact, then people actually can move to Portugal. They can benefit from tax regimes that are more interesting for them, such as the non-habitual tax resident regime. So there may be a very interesting combination of factors in real estate investments, Golden Visa, applying for a non-habitual residence regime. So all of these factors will make Portugal so popular, I guess.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on with our other questions. Okay, just give me a second. And somebody adds that Portugal is very open to foreigners. And I also understand has a unique policy in relation to narcotics. But that is a different topic. People are apparently not arrested for such things, but instead...
It depends.
Okay.
It depends.
Well, I'm telling you what I saw on CNN about a year ago.
Yes, it depends. It depends.
Okay, here we go. Here is an interesting question. We talked about one more question for Portugal. So we talked about Cyprus non-dom. We talked about the Greek tax regime, which is quite different. What about the Portugal tax situation? I apply for a golden visa, and what are my options in terms of tax?
Well, if you in fact decide to move, the question is whether the investor decides to move to Portugal or not and become a tax resident of Portugal or not. If in fact you are not to become a tax resident of Portugal, there are no specific benefits for that, just because you made the investment. There are no tax benefits. But if the investor actually decides to move to Portugal, then in that situation, the investor may become a tax resident of Portugal and apply for the non-habitual tax resident regime. This tax resident regime implies that, in fact, the investor is a tax resident of Portugal, and on a second level, the benefits are the following. They will be, in principle, tax exempt on income deriving from foreign source, and they will benefit from a flat tax rate on personal income tax on the income deriving from Portugal, from business income earned in Portugal, a flat rate of 20%. There is not, this has to be analyzed on each specific situation, on the investors that come to Portugal, whether the double tax treaty will apply between the source of the income and Portugal. But in principle, whenever an investor decides to move to Portugal, we always recommend to apply for the non-habitual tax resident regime, because it's always there are only benefits to it. But it, of course, will depend exactly on where the income is sourced and how the double tax treaty will apply.